does the, oh, you do the pledge.
Mr. Mayor, at 7 o'clock.
We got the public hearing first. I will call the public hearing to order. We have a public hearing on the rezoning of Lexington County TMS 0019210105 from neighborhood commercial to general commercial. That's the property over here on Lake Murray Boulevard behind the, what is that little service station thing? Precision Tune, yeah. Anyone who would like to speak on that, I will ask you come to the podium and give us your name and address for the record. And seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and call the regular council meeting to order and recognize Councilman Barry Walker to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
I see we have some Boy Scouts out here. You guys are from where? Irmo? Well, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I hope council doesn't mind. Use that microphone right there. Yeah, there you go. And tell us your name.
My name is Blaine Bushman.
Bushman?
Yes.
Help us out here, okay? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Council, bless this council and the decisions we make tonight, that we work to make our community grow and be stronger and better. Amen.
Amen. Next item on the agenda is the reading of the minutes from October the 2nd. Is there a motion for approval as written?
I make a motion.
A second.
I have one question here at the end. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, on the minutes?
Yeah. Adjournment. It says Mr. Walker made the motion to adjourn, Ms. Condon seconded. The motion was approved unanimously. Well, actually, it wasn't.
Right.
It was 3-2. And I believe Mayor King and I voted against adjourning to keep our track record of not agreeing on everything on council intact.
But we did agree on that.
We did agree on that. We did agree on not adjourning that night, but we did, it was 3-2.
But it was a short meeting.
Right. So I just wanted to make that one minor change. Thank you.
Any other changes or additions? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes being approved as amended, do so with show of hand. Next is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, anything you need to add?
Yes, sir. Just one thing. As you know, for the past 18 months, we've been working with the Census Bureau to get ready for the 2020 census. I had turned in a request to add 238 homes based on our records. They accepted 218 of them. In March, we'll have an opportunity to go through the list again and try to add the homes that they've missed and also for any new ones that might have been built.
What was the reason they...
Dealing with them, sometimes they don't give a reason. We've had
about...
this problem before. Back in 2010 when we did it, we also had an appeal and they rejected our So in March, we'll do this again. We'll go through the list, and then in September, they start sending people out to knock on doors. Questionnaires go out in June and July next year.
But of the 238, you said they only accepted 218.
That's correct.
But they claim the other 20 are not in town, or?
They don't give us an excuse. They didn't give me any kind of answer. They just said they accept 218, and they showed me the list that they accepted.
Can you resubmit those?
So
20?
we'll resubmit the 20 in March when we, like I say, do it again.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, the new subdivisions we've got coming up,
We have 2 new ones, yes, sir.
Yeah, those houses are actually submitted before they're done or after they're done?
No, the houses have to be up. There has to be somebody in the house.
Okay,
We will have, in the case of Shoals Landing that's being built on Irmo Drive, should have about 50% of those built by the end of next year.
How come my thing ain't on?
okay.
Is y'all's computer on? All right. Any other questions of Mr. Brown on the briefing? Next is the code enforcement update.
Good evening. Code enforcement update for September.
Ain't coming on.
All right. Breakdown of September 2018. Unsightly violations, 35, 33 for high grass, 9 for conditions of collection, 26 business checks, 16 vehicle violations, none related to front yard parking, 20 signs were removed, 1 animal complaint,
Bob.
12 miscellaneous complaints. Did somebody have a question?
Bob,
Sorry.
my thing ain't working here.
Bob broke it, Hardy broke his computer.
It comes on, but then it says no signal. So,
It's plugged in the back.
That would be that one.
One day that technology waits for no one.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're up.
all right, well, that's fine.
This is the signal cord right here, so
Okay.
You sure it's plugged in over here?
could have a problem at the other end.
You want us to turn ours some?
No, that's all right. That's all right. You can go ahead.
Okay, sir. Illicit discharge, 0. Newer sewer ordinance was 0. Tickets issued were 0 for the month, and they investigated 142 cases. Front yard parking update through August 1st, from August 1st through September 30th, 151 residents have been issued abatement notices. 2 residents have been issued so far tickets who do not comply within the grace period. And Mr. Brown has 66 properties that have been approved for pads.
Any question?
66 new properties or total?
That's a total list of properties that have been approved for new
Okay.
pads in the front yard parking.
Okay, question, I remember I asked you a question last council meeting.
About the rentals,
Right. So, well, let me first ask you, the 2 residents who were issued tickets for not complying with the grace period, did they go to court yet?
I believe they've gone to court.
And what was the disposition?
If I'm not mistaken, I don't really want to say, I'm not sure, but I think they were, one was given like a fine. I think they both were given fines or some, I'm not really sure. I can find out for you, but I think it was a very low fine of like $50.
Less than $1,000?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But again, I don't want to say without really knowing. I don't know if anyone.
That's fine.
One lady, she had a car that actually belonged to her father. She was upside down in it. It hadn't run for a year or maybe longer. They couldn't even crank it up or anything. He fined her with the agreement that she would have it towed. She had a relative that lived in, I think, Pillion or Gaston or somewhere. And evidently it's okay to have those cars in your yard there, so they towed it there.
$0 on the fine.
I think it was a $50 fine.
And then do you know about the other one? Yeah. I thought it was like $50, but I wasn't. It would have had to have been $50 for the court costs. Okay. So it was court cost of $50.
Okay, no problem. Now, out of the 151 issued abatement notices, how many of those went to rental properties?
None.
Okay. Did we have any rental properties that were issued tickets? Anybody with a rental property parking on the grass in the town of Irmo that y'all issued a ticket to?
No, we have not issued a ticket for anybody with that. I think Sergeant Dale asked that, advised you of that question, correct?
Well, yeah, I asked you to find out for me.
And I think you were advised, correct?
Yeah, I was, but I want you to.
Oh, yeah, it was 0. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was 0.
Okay, so the entire town of Irmo, we had absolutely no rental properties parking on the grass that were issued tickets.
That we found, yeah, we've abated people for it, but they've removed it, and we've never ticketed anyone for
See,
it.
that's what I'm confused about. Are we abating rental properties, or
Yeah,
are
they
we
have a
ticketing rental
They have
properties?
15 days to remove it from their property. We gave you that information.
Yeah,
Yes, that's in the ordinance. If y'all want to, if you want to change
yeah,
it.
I got you. So,
Yes, sir.
so the rental properties actually get the abatement time frame as well,
Because it's an abatement, yes.
but they don't automatically get a ticket right away.
No, sir, they don't.
Okay,
By the ordinance passed by council, they get time to address the issue as well.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure I'm clear
Yep.
when somebody asks me, do I get a ticket automatically if I have a rental property or not? You still get 15 days to comply.
We don't do that. We give people plenty of time to, that's why we have 99% compliance with our ordinances.
But they can't put down a pad, though. They can't build a pad in front of a rental property, right?
Not unless it's approved by by the administrator.
I don't know.
The only pads we allow are extensions to the driveways, whether it's concrete or gravel. Those are the only two things rentals can put out there. They can't put the pine straw, the mulch, and all the other stuff.
Okay. Got you. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Next on the agenda is amendments to the agenda. Any amendments? Seeing none. Next is consideration of communications, and I had been speaking to, Brent Chitwood about the rental, commercial rental stuff in town and different things. And he had told me about Mr. Brock and the Friars Gate shopping center up there and some things that were going on. And so I spoke with Mr. Brock about it and was kind of encouraged to hear the news that I heard about not just that shopping center, but the other commercial properties in town and what was going on. So I asked him to kind of come and fill us in so that we could kind of know what's going on in some of the things in town. So yeah. And you can just come up to the podium here and everything. That way we can all hear good.
I'm David Brock with ERA Commercial. We're right down the street, 1084. You probably noticed my signs on about every corner. I did bring my assistant, Vicki Brown, with me. I want to give you a little bit of an update on what's going on. We did purchase we had a group out of California purchase Friars Gate Plaza. We want to upgrade it. I'm pulling all the windows and doors out of it, putting new roofs on it. We are doing a stack stone finish halfway up, reshooting, spraying. Parking lot was in good shape. We changed all the lights out to LED just to upgrade it. Do have some wonderful tenants in there. Boulder Engraving is new. We have upped the rents to where they're tolerable. They were so below standards. I mean, I don't know why the place wasn't full. They were leasing stuff for $7 a foot, which is just, it was kind of crazy. But other than that, we do have two large big box grocers that have contacted us actually in the last 10 days that are showing great interest in the property. We were contacted today by a group that wanted at least 20,000 feet. But as far as I was having a debate with this gentleman about the commercial market, and I really have my finger on the pulse, it's pretty wide open. There's a lot of activity. I'm doing a ton of leasing. I probably did $22 million in leasing and sales last year. I look to do that again this year. I'm doing some stuff right across the dam. Of course, that's Lexington. We put in a new strip center. But I stay right here in this little area. So if I can answer anyone's questions, we're out of warehouse and flex space. Flex space is, say, 5,000 to 10,000 square feet of office warehouse. We don't really have a lot of that here in Irmo, which we need. And with the new 5 lanes coming in, I think it's going to be an issue. But the infrastructure is strong. We don't have enough buildings, actually. They just haven't been built. And the ones that are here, I think people are fighting over, or they've got some age on them. But that's all I've got to. I can answer any questions for anybody I'd like to.
Yeah, I just.
Oh, I had a question for you. What's the deal with the Piggly Wiggly, old Piggly Wiggly?
The Piggly Wiggly, I've had it under contract 4 times. The Wasserman brothers own it out of New York. very wealthy family, and it's gone back and forth to court. The problem with that is you got 45,000 square feet. I had sold it to churches previously, going up the hill. That'd be gorgeous. You've got 8 retail units. The problem is 82 parking spots. No one realizes that. There's one, the egress or access is on the top left, which we all know we got through with because it's a pretty community, pretty store. But you figure a Bala has 42 employees. Then you got 6 or 8 other retail that have 3 to 5 people. You only got 82 parking spots. So that's killed it. And for most of the larger churches that have the same vision we had, they have to have 22-foot ceilings, and they're 16, and they're 16 or 18. And it really means a lot when they put a stage in. So it has to kind of be conducive to what they're trying to do. But for years, they had no intentions of leasing it, which was an eyesore to us because they were getting $24,000 a month for 13 years with it vacant. Piggly Wiggly was still writing the check. So,
Yeah.
And if they would have leased it, they'd have lost that guaranteed money. So any good businessman's going to let them keep writing checks.
Yeah.
But that's over now, so we should see some movement, some change. Our goal was to go in and talk to the Wasserman Brothers about breaking it up into smaller retail units that are more conducive to the area.
And I know that, I can't think of the name of it. I think it's Irmo Village that's over behind the Lizard's Thicket.
Yes.
It seems to be a lot of activity and almost full back there. It may not look full, but I think the leases are.
They've done a good job with it. It just needs to be a little bit of an upfit to the front to update stuff. Everything in Irmo's pre-1980. So we need to do what we need to do. We're doing more of a Biltmore motif, just eclectic, classy. That's what we're shooting for. Just good.
Talking about at the Friars Gate.
Friars Gate, exactly. Yeah.
And you had mentioned, and I think there was a new sign for I'm gonna call it a New York pizza, but there's a new tenant there, and I think there's some more. You said moving in.
Right. We put Boulder Engraving, and they engraved Yeti coolers. They can engrave anything: TV screen, glass, steel. Then I had a guy come out of Brooklyn, and he rolled up one day and I couldn't really understand him. But he had 5 pizzerias out of Brooklyn. They came here. They sold them to his cousin. And he just swears this is the best pizza you've ever had in your life when you talk to him. Unbelievable guy. But all he took the old chickadees.
Okay.
So real impressed with that. We do have a large dental office wanting to go in where the Dollar General was. We also have a very large salon that's well known. And I can't mention these names because they're not in writing yet. And just disclosure, I can't do it, but we're real ecstatic about what's going in, and just real happy for the town of Irmo. It's a great center. I mean, you just had to have a lot of money, and thank goodness the owners have what it takes to get it done.
Good, good.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And let's see, any other consideration of communications?
Hold on a second. I had one. There was a question about our town budget. Is it online, Bob? Is the budget printed online? A copy of the budget online?
We don't have the actual budget online, but I mean, everything is kept for transparency purposes online.
Yeah, okay. So where would they find it at? Where would we go?
Comptroller? At the comptroller's office?
Oh, okay, that every check that we write goes out there and that
Yes, sir.
you can scroll down and follow it?
Correct.
Okay, what about the,
Keep the audits online, but that's not until, that's last year's audit.
yeah. So the budget that we looked at in June, or we passed in June, is that posted online somewhere?
No, it's available.
Okay. And they can just email you or call you and you can email it? Okay. So it's not online, but it is available by request. Thank you. Okay.
Since it's an ordinance, 1814, can't you just,
That's online, but that's just the budget numbers for the department, I mean.
but that's online. So that one page, if somebody goes to
The ordinances.
the ordinances, I know you have like section 2, which is administrative. What section do they go to?
You would go to Muni Docs, because that's who houses our ordinances. You go to Muni Docs, you'll see archive ordinances, and if you click on the
they go to and click on 1814 or 2018 and then look for,
Okay.
but they have to know that number 1814.
Well, I do have a description out beside it,
Okay.
kind of like what I've done else iPad. It's the same thing.
Okay.
But it just has that one page, like that. That, no, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Right, okay. Thank you. Somebody had that question. And we're gonna talk about the other thing later on, so that's what, thank you.
So any other consideration of communications? Next is presentation by citizens for agenda items. This is where anyone who wants to address council on anything on our agenda tonight may do so at this time. All we ask is you give us the name and address for the record and also which agenda item you want to speak to. And seeing none. Next is unfinished business, ordinance 1826, third and final reading. This is the one that has to do with the business license changes for the state. Is there a motion for third and final reading?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? And just for the record, for those out there that may not have been here before, and also for the Boy Scouts, what we're doing is the state has changed terminology as to business license definitions, and ours said total income, and they want it changed to gross receipts and gross revenue. So we're having to go through anywhere in our books that has it one way and change it to the new way. And that's kind of what we're doing here, is just changing our ordinance to match what the state says it has to. Any more discussion? All in favor then of third and final reading of 1826, do so with show of hand. Next is third and final reading of 1827, and this is also some of the same stuff. Is there a motion for third and final reading?
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on this one? And this is kind of the same thing, changing it from income to receipts or revenue. All in favor then of third and final reading, do so with show of hands. Next is third and final reading of 1829, which is the annexation of the two properties or three properties? Two properties.
Two.
Is there a motion for third and final reading?
Make a motion.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion on these? All in favor then of third and final reading of annexing these two properties into town, do so with show of hand. And the next one is the franchise fee, second reading of ordinance 30 to grant Mid-Carolina Electric the non-exclusive rights to operate and provide service and to levy the 4% franchise. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And who, you did? Okay. Oh. And this is just the contract. We have approved, the council approved the change from 3% to 4% back in August. But this is the contract that we have to do in order for them to, I guess, charge us. The bad when you tell people they can charge you more and then they want you to sign a contract. If we don't sign the contract, I guess then we can't do it. Maybe I'll vote against that. Is there a motion for? Is that 1830? Okay, I'm looking at 31. Okay. Any discussion then on that? All in favor then of that contract, do so with show of hands. And I'll agree to sign the contract. I don't like the 4%, but all opposed. And this is the contract, 1831 for SCE&G. Same thing. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And second.
Second.
And the same thing, they want a contract in order to charge us the 4% instead of the 3. Any discussion? All in favor then, do so with show of hands. Opposed? Next is second reading to rezone the property, 1164 Lake Murray Boulevard from neighborhood commercial to general commercial. Is there a motion for second reading?
So move.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? And I ain't looking at my screen, that's right, y'all got the, oh. How do, hey, how do you get that on there?
On pages.
Oh, man. Where's pages at?
It's a pen with an orange piece of paper.
Oh, there it is.
Now here, that ain't it.
Mm-hmm.
That's pages?
Well, it was, but it ain't pop. Oh, man.
Down there.
Oh.
Okay.
What's new? Guess I ain't turned that one on in a while. I like paper copies. Anyway, this is that property there it is, it popped.
Cypress.
Right behind
Precision
Tune
tuning.
and the gas station. And it looks like it's all surrounded by neighborhood commercial.
General commercial.
Well,
Back
well,
here,
general
it's
commercial in the front,
neighborhood,
neighborhood in the back, but, yeah.
There's no reason why it shouldn't be general.
Right.
Any discussion? All in favor then of changing that from neighborhood commercial to general commercial, do so with show of hand. And next is first reading of 1833. This is the one that has to do with the pine straw. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? And Kathy?
I'll make it brief. There was an article in the paper Sunday a week ago about dry vegetation and pine straw causing fires underneath cars. And they think that was the cause of the last fires in California that was so expansive. Anyway, it was in the paper. It was mentioned on Facebook, so I read the article. But then I Googled pine straw, catalytic converter, and fire. And there are pages of documentation where a car with a hot catalytic converter parks on top of dry vegetation or pine straw and catches fire. That's in our parking ordinance. I do not know of a solution of anything comparable priced that we could substitute for pine straw. I don't know whether we ought to put pine straw at your own liability. I don't know what, but I know, Facebook knows, and Google knows, it can cause serious fires. So I'm not sure what the solution is. I thought, you know, if we first do no harm, we ought to take it out. But then people can't afford gravel, rocks, things that would take it, concrete, things that would take its place. So I don't know the answer to this. I'm anxious to hear what y'all think. I know y'all, if you don't want it taken out, I understand. If you do, I understand that too. But I hate to have something here that you know is dangerous, but we're recommending it anyway. So that's the argument.
Just to take it out, is what you're saying?
Yeah, but I don't have anything to substitute.
Well,
That is of that.
let's take the word pine straw out of the
Well,
ordinance.
Yeah, and maybe call it something else. I don't know. I just.
Well, just take the word pine straw out, and if somebody puts it down, so what?
Well, if they've already got it down, it'd be grandfathered. But
But
mainly,
if they put it down anyway, so what? I mean,
it's fine with me.
somebody's gonna go in there and say that's pine straw, not leaves, so we're gonna give you a fine, or we're not gonna.
Well, if it wasn't in here, then they couldn't put it down, basically.
Well, if they did, why would we care?
I don't know that we would. That's why I might
Right.
well just leave it.
Well, I mean, that's fine, but we're telling people that we're approving pine straw, and that's a fire hazard, is what you're saying. And I'm saying just take it out, and if they put it down anyway, so what? We're gonna give people a ticket because they have pine straw and not,
We could put something
cedar
like
up mulch?
other landscaping material. You know, I hate to say that, but
Well, if you,
the bottom line is you wanna remove the word pine straw,
Yeah,
and if
I
somebody
don't-
wants to put it
I
down,
don't
that's
want to
fine.
recommend something
Right.
that I know is
That's
going
gonna
to
cause a fire hazard, okay. So, in essence, the ordinance is just to remove the word pine straw, but it's not saying you can't use pine straw. It's
Well,
saying you do. If somebody uses it as the bedding on their driveway, so
We could
what?
amend it and put other landscaping material, and pine straw is other landscaping material.
Right, but we don't want to recommend
No.
pine straw and then it be something that causes a fire. Okay, good.
anyone else?
Well, the city of Columbia has the same ordinance using pine straw. That's where the idea came from, to keep costs low. And they haven't panicked to have it taken out of their ordinance.
And
And neither has Forest Acres.
But again, we're not saying you can't use it. We're just saying we
Well,
don't
if it's
want to
not
be.
written in there that
Yeah,
it
it's not
can be,
approved.
then it's not allowed. Because that's what number 3 is. Number 4 is the items that can be used for a paving or
But
surface.
the ordinance reads that it's any pervious substance.
Yeah,
And then it goes on to say such as, which is giving you examples, but it is including but not limited to these following examples.
right.
I'll bow to the legal entity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you take it out and somebody uses it as a pervious substrate, so what? I mean, that's fine. That's all I'm saying is that by not saying the word pine straw, we're not held, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, we're not held, if somebody puts pine straw down, their car catches on fire, and they say, well, Irmo said we could use pine straw. We ended up for a court case,
But we don't say you have to use it. We say such as.
but we mentioned the material.
I mean, I doubt that there would be liability just because it was in your statute, because you allowed them to do it. It was in there. It still would be one of the options. You're just taking it out so as to not have the appearance
Right.
of endorsing this.
Correct.
I mean, I
And
don't-
that's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, I think the liability portion of it be speculative at best anyway, but
So
regardless
in-
of what you do.
You saying it doesn't matter one way or the other? I'm not,
I'm saying what I understand that Kathy's trying to say, and maybe what Barry's saying, is that they don't want to be seen as condoning, as saying specifically, hey, this is a good one, so let's take it out, but we're not eliminating it as a possibility. We just don't want it to be in there. Is that what I'm understanding? But I think either way, it's still an option, and either way, it could still start a fire.
so if we take it out and somebody puts it down, are we going to approve it as a thing since it's not a such as?
Well, yeah, it's just such as, it's including. So, I mean, for instance, what if somebody wanted to put down, say, fish tank rocks?
Yeah,
Not on your thing there, but I mean, it's clearly an impervious substrate.
right.
So is that a yes or no?
Yes, I mean, it would still be, you could still put it down, for sure.
Right.
So
So we're not
we would
telling-
still, Bob would still approve it even if it's not in there, if somebody put it down or said they want to put it down.
Correct.
Right,
Because it's substrate, pervious substrate.
right. But again, Mrs. Condon, you're saying you think and I think that we don't leave ourselves open to any kind of litigation because we said pine straw and that caused the car to catch on fire.
These are our people.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't want to tell them something that's going to harm them, but I have pine straw all over my yard.
All right,
So
What about the ones that's already put it down?
it's fine.
that's fine.
It's fine if they use it in the future.
Well, wait a minute,
That's perfectly fine. I mean, if it's fine now, it was definitely fine when it was in the ordinance.
Right,
If you take it out of the ordinance, then it would still be, they would be grandfathered in, of course, but there's nothing to grandfather because it was fine then and it's still fine now. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Not for me.
You can still use it because it is under that classification of pervious substrate.
All we're doing is,
You can still use it. We're just
Well,
not,
then leave it in there. I don't know.
okay.
Any more
It's not,
discussion?
it's not gonna
not
hurt
gonna change.
anything. It's not gonna change anything. Take it out. I'll agree. I'll vote for it. Take it out of there and
First, do
I
no
think we'll
harm.
be fine.
Any more?
No, that's it.
Where was I at? 1833. All in favor then of first reading of removing pine straw from 6-4, do so with show of hands.
Oh, thank y'all. I knew I could shame you into it.
And next is first reading of 1834. This is the ordinance that Eric came up with that has to do with reasonable accommodations. Is there a motion for first reading?
So move.
And a second?
second.
Any discussion? And who's first? Kathy, you want to go?
Eric, this is good, right? Oh, he's got to get his mic for this one.
I'm not going to take full credit for this. I candidly searched the issue and found that the forefront of this issue is out in California, who they developed a what they called a uniform code for reasonable accommodations. It was rather lengthy. I pared it down quite a bit. It also contemplated a number of different entities, people, employees that the town doesn't have working for them, like a zoning person that would go out and do zoning enforcement and that sort of thing. So I tailored it down to what Irmo needs, got rid of a lot of all the language and explanations, and just kept the part that you guys wanted to have. And it's supposed to be a uniform type ordinance.
And who seconded it? Barry, do you want?
Yeah. Explain to me, explain to me, Eric, what we're saying here and why are we doing this? Is this because of what?
I mean, there's no reason I was asked to do it, to address a hole, as it were, in our current variance ordinances that didn't specifically delineate the need to consider a different grounds for granting a variance, which would have been available under federal law, not under our local ordinance. It's always been there. It's kind of like the same way we don't have it in our ordinance that we'll follow the Constitution, or that we'll follow the laws of the state of South Carolina. It's kind of known, but this is a good thing, and it's kind of a recommendation of the FHA, Department of Justice. They all kind of recommend that you have this so that when your governing body is looking at variance requests, that they can have the appropriate findings and inquiries into a variance request pursuant to a disability request for a reasonable accommodation.
Okay, but this is in pursuant because of, let's say a person wanted to put a carport up and they couldn't do it because they weren't proved to be disabled at the time. Now they can do it because of this modification in our ordinance?
They'd still have the burden of coming in and establishing these required findings, and you see in there, let me find it. It's in there under the caption that says required findings, and so it would change the inquiry we presently have for a variance request. Now you would say, under the present variance request, you would look to see if there was something unique about the property that would make it so that they couldn't use the property in the same way as another individual, and it had to be something unique to that property. This is a different inquiry. This is saying, look, is there something, is there a disability? Is there a reason that is this disability necessary to making the property available and usable by the person with the disability? Is it going to impose a hardship on the town? and whether or not it would fundamentally alter the land use or building program. So it's just a different set of rules to apply to a different type of request.
Okay, but what I'm asking is, we have disability all over this ordinance, specifically stated out, okay? Are you saying a person has to prove that they're disabled to use this particular, to go up against ZBA and say, I need a zoning or ZBA request for a variance?
I would be reluctant to say that they have a burden to quote prove. I guess it would depend on what you decided what proof was. I believe the mayor and I had some measure of discussion on this. But if a person has a placard in their window for their car that says they're disabled, I don't need to see a doctor.
Right.
If they come in and they're walking with a walker and they say they need to access the ramp and this is the only way they can do it, I don't need to see a doctor.
Right.
So I guess when you say prove, that word in and of itself is a gray area. But yes, they would have to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the zoning administrator and if necessary on appeal to the Zoning Board of Appeals, a disability. Proof is in the eye of the beholder.
So this is not doing what we actually set out to do. I mean, if I have to come to ZBA and say now I am disabled and I want accommodations made to my property because I want to put a carport in to get my house and it doesn't meet the specific requirements of putting a carport in, but I'm disabled and I needed to have it put in place. You're saying I still have to prove to the ZBA administrator or the ZBA board that I am quote unquote disabled.
Actually,
this doesn't do that?
You actually wouldn't even need to go that far. You'd only have to go first to the zoning administrator and tell the zoning administrator that you were disabled.
Oh, I don't have to go to ZBA at all?
You would only have to go to the ZBA if the zoning administrator determined that you were not disabled for whatever reason. And it also gives the zoning administrator a great deal of liberty to ask for more information. So if the zoning administrator says, well, you don't have a handicap placard and I don't have you getting Social Security disability, a check from a Social Security disability, you're not using a cane, I can't see your disability, you tell me you're disabled, I need to have a little something more. He can ask for something more and leave the request open. So it gives a lot of leeway to the zoning administrator to request more information. And then the zoning administrator would also have to make a determination that, okay, we found that this person, I think this person is disabled. Now is this accommodation necessary to make this housing available to this person?
Right.
And then and only then would you go and start looking as to whether or not it's going to cause an undue hardship to the town, whether it was going to do a fundamental alteration to the jurisdiction's land use, zoning, building program. So no, they wouldn't have to go to the ZBA. No, it would be, I mean, it could be something as simple, like I said, as walking in and here's my handicap placard. Here's where I want to put this thing. I need it here because I need to be able to do this because of my disability. And bada bing, we're done.
Yeah. Presently, he doesn't have the leeway to do that now.
He does. He does because this is already federal law.
No. Presently, in the town of Irmo, our zoning administrator doesn't have the leeway to do what you just said, make that determination without this ordinance being passed.
This ordinance is just putting into writing the federal law. It's just memorializing the fact that we would follow federal law and putting it there. So when Bob or Bob's successor or the ZBA has new members or whoever, when they might come along, that they would have something to go by. This is federal law.
So why are we doing this then if we have the ability to do it now? Why are we putting it in writing right now if we have the ability to do it now?
That thing we did last week with the judge thing. The state law says you can appoint or you can blah, 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 whatever the other stuff was. But we went ahead and changed ours to be like theirs, even though we could have still hired someone because state law says we can. We just made ours match whatever state law said. So we're kind of, I guess that's the best of what we're doing is,
well, I
still doing it.
Okay.
But one question I wanted to ask too, you mentioned a word a while ago. It wasn't dedicated, where
Demonstrated.
Demonstrated. Now let me ask this, because we talked about proof, so to speak. If I wanted to make an amendment and say documented or demonstrated disability, would that make it?
You want to be very cautious,
Right.
as to any.
But is those words better than, I think before I had approved or whatever it was? I can't remember what I had.
Right. So I mean, documented. Again, when we're talking about a protected class, so when we start talking about religion, sex, ethnicity, disabilities, then we're talking about a protected class, and anything you do to make it more difficult on that class to demonstrate their disability, their ethnicity, their whatever, for purposes of qualification under the law, that very act in and of itself may be violating the law.
So if we're asking someone to either document that they have a disability or what do you say, demonstrate that they have one, that is.
It was intentionally, this ordinance and the way that it is worded is intentionally vague in terms of what the requirements are, so that the zoning administrator has the full breadth of things to look at in making that determination, so that we don't pin him down to, you have to document it, and then I need to have your doctor come in and give me a doctor's note that you're disabled, even though you've got a disabled placard in the car, or even though you're in a wheelchair.
Well, that would be documented if you had, or would that be demonstrated?
That would be demonstrated.
Demonstrated, yeah.
Anyone else?
No, I think he's put a lot of time into this, and I think we should approve it.
Again, I don't see why we need to approve it if we already have it in place. Or is this, I just need to get some more research on it, why we're doing this and how we're wording this. And, let's go ahead and vote on it. Go on.
Did you want to? Okay. All in favor then of first reading on ordinance 1834, do so with show of hands. All opposed? And next is the approval of the intergovernmental agreement between the town of Irmo and both Richland and Lexington counties for their infrastructure, construction, and maintenance. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Bob, anything you want to say about this?
No, sir. I pretty well explained it in my administrative briefing, but this is, we've had situations in the past where we've had subdivisions built across county lines, and the counties build roads and infrastructure with different standards. So this way they're going to come on board and come to the same standard within the town of Irmo. Makes it a lot easier to get roads accepted after they're done.
Oh, good.
Now, is Lexington agreeing with Richland, or Richland agreeing with Lexington, or are they just both meeting in the middle somewhere?
They've made a whole bunch of changes both ways. We've been going on with this for about 3 months now,
Okay.
trying to get it ironed out, and we finally got to where they both agree.
Okay. Any discussion?
Thank you, Bob.
All in favor then of that intergovernmental agreement, do so with show of hands. Next is presentation by citizens. This is where anyone who wants to address council on anything, regardless of whether it's on the agenda or not, may do so at this time. All we ask is you come to the podium and give us your name and address for the record.
You waited too late.
You know my name and address, I think. Couple of things with the off-street parking.
Wait a minute, who are you? Who you are?
I'm Brandy Clarkson.
Okay.
With the off-street parking, for over a year, citizens have brought the concern of the pine straw right here to this podium in this very room. We were ignored, yet you guys listened to Google. I believe the person who built the porch on town hall is one of the people who brought it up the very first meeting when we had like over 75 people here against the parking ordinance. Bark can also catch on fire. I mean, this ordinance has so many things wrong with it. We have a citizen who can no longer get his mail delivered because the people can't have a parking pad in their yard, so they're parking in the street. They aren't blocking his mailbox, but the street is too crowded. So who's to say if I walk into the street to get in my car, I can't sue you because you didn't allow me to park in my own yard? There's a lot of ways that people can sue you guys over this ordinance. Trust me, there's an entire list that we've all compiled. The ordinance needs to be rewritten. It needs to be repealed and rewritten. And it needs to be written by someone who's qualified to write ordinances, like the town attorney. None of you guys are qualified. That's been proven. And I don't mean that to, I'm not trying to put you down. You're just not. He's an attorney. He can stop the town from being sued. Secondly, I applaud Bob and the attorney for coming up with the ordinance for the ADA. I wish it had been clear over a year ago as well, so that we wouldn't have had a citizen slandered in the media, talked about unkindly by everyone, just about everyone up there, every single council member. I don't think anybody with a disability should have to demonstrate it to anyone, though. I think that either having the placard, the decal, the tag, I don't think you should have to have your doctor have a letter. Obviously, you are disabled if you got any of those from the DMV. So having to demonstrate anything for any of you should be a violation of their rights. I don't even have to demonstrate a registration for a dog to go with me into Walmart if that's my service dog. So to ask someone to demonstrate because they're not walking with a cane or because they can ride their dog around in their wheelchair to say they're not disabled, you don't get to make that call. So I wish it would have been clear. I think it would have saved the town a whole lot of trouble. I think it would have saved a elderly lady who just needed some help a whole lot of trouble, but I am glad that y'all are doing it now, and I think it does need to be done because Bob doesn't have the power to do whatever Bob thinks is right because there are repercussions. Also, the yard of the month, I don't think that we need to award anyone who's already keeping their yard clean. I don't think that does anything but make other people who are less fortunate and unable feel bad about what they aren't able to do. So if you propose a Yard of the Month club, which to me is another HOA rule that you're trying to put into Irmo, instead of proposing something like that, I would like to propose that we have a committee made of citizens. It's been proven that that's fairly easy to do by one post on Facebook, that people who want the help and need the help can be our Yard of the Month. They can apply, and the committee can go out and beautify that person's yard. And then they can receive Yard of the Month. That is helping our town. That's not patting anyone on the back for something they're already doing. That's not causing hurt feelings. That's not creating HOA laws. The whole purpose of this supposedly was to raise our property values and to make the town look better. So why don't we do that instead of awarding people because they have pretty bushes? Why don't we do things to help the town? That's my proposal. I already have 17 people who want to do it, who will go out and clean up whoever's yard applies for it. There would be no liability on the town because it's strictly volunteer. We've already done it for 3 people on our own. So that's it.
Thank you.
My name is Al Middleton, and this is a prototype of a trolley car. I'm from Charleston, and whenever a kid got a new pair of shoes, we would take the empty shoe box and we would pull it down the street at night with a fire in it. Well, fires are kind of dangerous, so we no longer use fire, we use glow sticks. But just like your Irmo orchestra has caught on, I can envision kids being taught the difference between a friendly fire and an unfriendly fire. A friendly fire will take care of our pets, keep us warm, nice and cozy. Unfriendly fire will do the opposite and hurt us. So my thoughts thought something like this could catch on maybe the last Friday of Fire Prevention Week. And park over here where the kids can come and pull it around. We can have fire trucks, not with the sirens on, but with the lights on, and firemen there showing kids how to be safe and learn about fires. This is a non-profit venture. It's only designed to teach kids how to be aware of fires. And I did get some research on it. The state of South Carolina has far too many fires, and too many people die in these fires. So this prototype is dragged along with the kids, designed from 3 to 7 at night, and it's hooked to their little arms. And the jukeboxes are available at any shoe store. And we cut it out, let the kids pull it, and mom and dad walk with them. And I think it'll create a lot of excitement. So it's just an idea and it's just a vision, but it's a good one. So thank you for your time. And if the city of Irmo is interested, I can leave something for them to take a look at and consider.
Are you saying you want us to
You can leave
host that, or?
Out there. Yeah.
Al, are you saying you want us to host a night where we do this in Fire Prevention Week? Have students build those prototypes, or?
Well, yeah, I can see getting all the shoe boxes we want. I took my time to cut the little windows out, and the glow plugs are available.
Yeah.
And we just snap it and put it in, let the kids put it around the little arms and pull it along with mom and dad. And I think it'll create, but in time it'll catch on pretty good. As we know, the city of Charleston had 9 firemen that died. And the mayor down there is looking at this very openly right now. In fact, they're in a position now to build a new fire station right where the firemen died at down there on Savannah Highway. My thoughts are, one day maybe with the help from somebody at the university, I can get a grant written nicely at the National Fire Prevention, National Fire Association to do it on a national scale. But I'm proposing that Irmo take lead and kick off and see what happens. But there's no cost from me. You want to keep that? Okay. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, Al. Jada. All right.
Anyone else?
Hi, Eric Sickinger, 417 Crestfell Road. I echo Ms. Clarkson's concerns regarding street parking and having their mail delivered, or not being able to have their mail delivered. I understand that that is not necessarily completely the town's concern because you're not in control of the U.S. Postal Service. However, I believe that as a resident, it puts me in an undue burden where I need to work with my neighbors to move them away from whatever that area is, simply so I can get my mail delivered. And that creates a challenge for residents. I also am under the impression that when someone receives a, forget the term, like a warning for their code enforcement, an abatement notice, that I'm under the understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that if someone receives an abatement notice during the year, that if they receive one abatement notice, that at any point for the rest of the year, they no longer can receive an abatement notice, and it simply would be a 24-hour warning.
For that particular violation.
Right. I have concerns with that because if I am out of town or if for whatever reason I just let my grass grow and it doesn't get cut and I get an abatement notice, and of course, I fix it, and then at some other point during the year I happen to be away and for whatever reason I get that 24-hour notice, that puts me in a difficult position as a resident. So I would like for you to take a look at that and reconsider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, that abatement notice, that second abatement notice is that white paper that people were referring to?
It's a courtesy thing that code enforcement came up with.
Right. Okay. No, I've seen the picture, but what the intent is that the police department or the code enforcement people are not trying to write $1,000 tickets. They're trying to give you every opportunity to comply with whatever violation they're seeing.
Law enforcement in general wants everyone to comply. If everyone complied,
Right.
we would have a job. But again, our main goal in law enforcement is for everyone to do the right thing.
Right.
Like firemen, they don't want people to start fires and all that, but they're here to put them out.
Okay, but
That's what we do. We put out fires.
Okay, but we passed the ordinance that says you don't cut your grass, you get a warning, you don't do it, you get $1,000 ticket plus ticket. Right?
No.
Right. And you don't do it in that time frame, you get $1,000 ticket and you get a chance to go to court. Is that no, yes? Is that a no, we don't, or yes,
No,
we
you
do?
don't.
What do we do?
You don't get a $1,000 ticket.
What do you get?
Up to.
You get
Get a ticket.
You get a ticket. And
Right.
The court decides
With a
what
maximum.
that ticket will be.
Right. And the max is 1,000 plus 1,087.50,
Yes, it
right?
is.
Okay, so you are, that's what I'm saying, that the police department will write a $1,087 ticket and give you an opportunity to go to court and defend yourself, right?
Yep.
Right? Okay. But we're trying every opportunity we can, or our code enforcement people are trying every opportunity they can not to have to give you that ticket. That's where this 24-hour thing came from, right?
Yeah, just in the briefing I did, we had 142 cases investigated by code enforcement. We wrote 0 tickets. I don't know how.
That's fine.
I don't know how much more compliance you can get from our citizens.
And that's fine. But my point is this. You guys don't want to have to write a ticket in a court and give them a court date. You're trying everything you can do not to do that.
Up to a certain point, yeah.
Okay.
But we realize some people have to go and get tickets. Some people have to go to jail, but we're sorry. It's what we do. So
Okay.
you have to have compliance through education, through
Right.
enforcement.
Okay.
Law enforcement.
I just wanted to amend my statement. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the follow-up 24-hour notice, the white notice. Right, you did not have to do that. At the same time, if perhaps the window which resets the abatement notice might want to be looked at.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mike Ward, 118 Ashbourne Road. Thank you, everybody, for your service. And Al, correct? Thank you for your note about fire prevention. It really kind of spurred me to stand up here and talk, really, Kathy, to you. I want to encourage you, maybe at the next meeting, to really consider the pine straw one step further. If we're just removing it from the ordinance so it doesn't look like you're condoning it, maybe it should be something that, when we're looking at it for zoning, should be something that the residents need to understand. If they're putting pine straw down, it is a high fire risk. So if we're really concerned about the safety of our residents, maybe it needs to be handled at that level instead of just removing it from the ordinance so that it doesn't look like we're condoning it. All right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to clarify on the second warning thing. Ms. Mobley, I'm sure she wouldn't care if I said her name. She put it all over Facebook. She didn't know what the white notice was, which means she didn't get a pink notice. They may have left it on her door, but tape doesn't always work. So she got home sometime in the afternoon that day when the white notice was on her door, and she's unable to keep her yard up. She's one of the people who could use a yard of the month. So she only had a certain amount of hours to get that yard brought up to code before she got a fine and the possibility of jail time. I just don't think that's fair. Leaving a pink notice on someone's door with a piece of tape that could land them in jail or a $1,000 fine, and then giving them 24 hours, which you're right, you don't have to do, but at the same time, what if she wouldn't have gotten that one? You know what I mean? you're not actually speaking to anyone when you're going out there if they're not home. So you're just taping something on their door. They're not getting it certified mail. They're not getting a phone call. To be specific, Ms. Mobley actually did call the officer who left it and asked for help and was told, I know some people, I'll call you back, never got a call back. So she posted on the Citizens of Facebook page, and multiple people offered to come help her, but it shouldn't have gotten to that point. She should have known before that white notice was put up that she even got the abatement. So that really does need to be looked at. I mean, you're talking about, I don't want to call her elderly. I don't know how old she is, but you know her, Barry, and Kathy knows her, but she's not young. And she can't get out there and do it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
How old is she?
Hmm?
How old is she?
70.
I cut my grass today.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Next item is, we got some discussions on here about the okra strut and the distribution of the funds. Years ago, when we changed the okra strut over to the non-cash and all the other things that we made, the first year after that, I think they cleared like 20,000 or something approximately. And we had talked about using that money for different things in the town of Irmo, whether it be nonprofits or something else. I think Sharon God's Love came up and Lisa's Care came up and some other stuff. But we had decided to hold off until a couple of years to see how they were going to do. And they have continued to work in the black the last couple of years. And it came up at the last meeting, or not necessarily at the last meeting, but one of the meetings when we were talking about the okra strut and the accommodations tax, that they had a surplus of funds and that we didn't need to give them any more of the accommodations since they had a surplus. And in a way, I agree with that. In a way, I disagree with that. But I think it's time that we discuss that fund, what to do with it. I know they...
With the accommodation fund or the okra strut fund?
No, the okra strut. And I know they were going to meet, or they did meet the other night, last week, and they were going to be discussing some things they wanted to do in the park as far as widening the paths, some of the asphalt paths to make them wider, and do some other stuff. A couple of years ago, they took some of that money and they put in some more power wires and power poles and all that kind of stuff.
Outlets.
Yeah, and they also want to look at increasing some of the widths of some of the paths in there, and maybe even putting some more pathways in, I'm not sure. And that may be a good thing too, for them to use that money on that, but it's still going to be a chunk of money left over. I think Bob said even after they do whatever they do, 50,000 or something maybe in that ballpark that they might have.
That was the estimate we got. Whit did a little measuring out there. We'd have to take some trees down, and we're thinking about widening it about 4 more feet, just because that's where all the big crowds are on Friday and Saturday, or in front of the food vendors, not the whole park.
Right.
Just the stretch in front of.
So I feel like we need to at least get it in our thought process. Not necessarily do we need to act right now. We need to wait and see what they're going to recommend in this. But I think at some time we need to start thinking about what can we do with that funds, those proceeds, and how do we want to use them? Whether it's beautification in the town of Irmo or some other projects or whatever it may be, but what are we going to do with it? I do believe that we need to use the accommodations money as much as possible for the Oak Strut, because that is the only promotional thing we have in town. And if we can continue to give it that money there to promote it and not general fund money, and let them live off of that plus whatever they get from the county and their sponsorships and all that good stuff. But whatever they got left at the end of the year, figure out, leave some in there for them in case, whatever. But come up with something to do with that money. Plus, if we come up with it sooner, say by January or February of each year, or March or something, then they can use that to promote when they're talking to sponsors. Here's what we're going to do with the money this year, whatever it may be. And so I think we need to probably in December, January, really start figuring out.
But
what
we're
to do
going
with it.
to do what they want to do first, right?
Well, I think there's enough in there for them to do what they want to do and still have
okay.
50,000 left over. So I think
just-
we need to kind of,
I want them to be considered because they're the ones
Yeah.
making the money.
and then
Well-
let's say there's 70 and they use 20 or 30.
Yeah.
And then there's 40 or 50 left. We don't have to spend the whole 40 or 50. It may be 20, and make sure they keep 20 or 10 or 15 or whatever the number is that they keep in there.
Well, the other thing that we discussed too is getting the better bands earlier through the process. I think they start in January, and a lot of the bands are already booked. So if they can do it now, right after the strut is over, then we have a possibility of getting better drawing bands.
Yeah, that's one of the problems. The bands, a lot of the different quality bands are booked by April.
A year in advance, right?
So they have to start looking. In fact, they started looking last year, but a lot of the ones they wanted were already booked. So they're trying to back it up a little bit more. And that's one reason why they need to have some cash so they can,
Right.
pay the deposit or whatever it is. Right. But I still think there's going to be funds that we need to look at, probably somewhere in the $10,000 to $15,000 a year ballpark to figure out what.
Okay, let me ask you a question. The orchestra doesn't sell anything, but they hold on an event. Their charge was to go out and raise money to put this event on. So to keep it simple, let's say they raise $100,000 to put on the orchestra, and they only spend $80,000. And at the end of the day, they say, oh, we made $20,000 profit. Well, it's not really profit. You just didn't spend the $100,000 that you had raised to make the orchestra happen. And that's fine. And then you take that $20,000 and put it in your savings account or your bank account and say, oh, we got $20,000 we made, so that's our reserve. So next orchestra, they do it again. They hold the orchestra, they raise $100,000. They spend $80,000 and they leave $20,000. Oh, we got $20,000 more to put into that orchestra account or orchestra line item in the budget since it's all part of the town. My question to you is, why would we as a council even get involved with what the orchestra is doing with that money? I mean, they're out raising this money to put the orchestra on, and they're not spending it. So what you guys are calling profit, which I call just you didn't spend the money, it's not profit. It's just, I don't know why we're even getting involved in that. And secondly, you said that the orchestra, it's got all this cash, left over from the orchestra. Then why is the town of Irmo kicking in money from our general fund to put the orchestra on? We gave them, I think it was $26,000, and we had to because that's the only organization that we could give it to that met the qualifications. But if they got so much cash on hand, and they're getting all this money, quote unquote, making a profit, why is the town contributing all that money? I think we contributed an additional $5,000, was it, for the band or something last year? So I understand what your intent is for us to get involved in that, but I really think that we don't need to be involved in that. If they're doing so great and they're making such a great profit, fine, let them keep doing it. Let them get Chicago or Earth, Wind, and Fire to come play the orchestra since they can make all that money, We don't need to be.
You want me to answer? Are you asking me? Or?
I'm asking the council. It was a
But
discussion.
if we did something like what he suggested, that's for the benefit of the orchestra.
And I agree. And I think you actually, if we can take that $50,000 that they got right now and book Bonnie Raitt, let's do it. Let's do it. That's what we should be doing. But I don't think we as a council should be telling them, well, we should take $10,000 and do whatever. No, let the orchestra tell them what to do with their money that they're raising. And quite frankly, I don't have a problem giving the orchestra money from the town because I believe the orchestra is not a profit-making part of the town. I believe it's something that we put on to give back to the community. So yeah, if we write a check for $26,000 or $5,000 or whatever to put the orchestra on, great. That's what we're doing as a town council to give back to the community. And I think it's a great use of that money, but then that's just my 2 cents. Okay.
Well, I'll answer some of this stuff. I'm not 100% sure on the second, but I didn't use the word profit. I didn't hear Mark use the word profit. I heard, quote, unquote, you used the word profit 3 or 4 different times. I said proceeds. We can debate in semantics, but still, I didn't say profit.
You never said profit?
No, I didn't. I didn't hear
You
Mark
never
say it
said
either.
profit?
No.
Okay. That's funny. I've heard that word once or twice.
Yeah, I think I've heard it a bunch of times too, but no, I didn't use it.
Okay.
I just said the proceeds.
What's proceeds then, I guess?
And, well, you asked 2 questions. Let me ask the other one.
What's proceeds? Profit.
And you asked why we should fund it. I'm thinking what you're saying is why we should fund it with the hospital, the H tax, the accommodations tax. We have a very tight and have had a very tight general fund. And we just went through 3 or 4 budget adjustments. One is a franchise fee, one was the stormwater fee, one was the garbage, what do we call it, sanitation fee, in order to put more funds into the general fund because the general fund isn't big enough to cover everything. And taking $20,000 out to give to the Oak Strut when we have this thing called the tax accommodations, which is designated to go to tourist-related, whatever you want to call it, events or whatever, then to me it makes more sense to give it that money there, which is what that is for, and then use our general fund for paying other bills and all that kind of good stuff. If we didn't have, and years ago we didn't have the accommodations, we did fund it out of the general fund. But as soon as that accommodations came, then we started trying to fund it off of that. And they also started going to Richland County and getting the accommodations when don't know why they didn't do it years ago, but they didn't. But this new group started getting it there. So I think it's a better way of taking that money that is allocated towards tourist-related and using it for tourist-related and using our general fund to pay whatever else the general fund has to pay. And the other question, as far as the Oak Strut belongs to the town, and if we want to set up a 501(c) and set it up in there and let them do it and have their own business and do whatever they want to with the money, give it to whoever they want to give it to, I would agree with that 100% and vote on it all 3 readings. But until we decide to do that, we spend a lot of time, as far as not us here, but our town staff, working with the Oak Strut and doing all the things they do. So for us to benefit by those funds to do something for the town of Irmo, such as what they want to do. But when it's all said and done, and even hiring a bigger band like Bonnie Raitt, you can pay $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 for a band, but you got to have accommodations for them. And a band like that coming into our 1,800-seat arena, I think that's going to be a big problem too. So there's a limit as to
be a hit.
There's a where are you going to put all those people that come, and that's a problem that they got to as far as deal with how big of a band can they get, because you can't get 20,000 people in that spot, and we'd have a trouble if they tried to get it in there. So we kind of have to.
I like
within
that problem.
bounds too.
I think that'd be a nice problem to have.
Well, it may be, unless you're one of the people that are getting elbowed, fighting and pushing and shoving, and everybody's wanting to sit in front and nobody can, and then you got a bunch of...
Look, our Irmo Police Department can handle anything. I believe they can handle it.
Well,
They'd be glad. They'd be up to the challenge, I guarantee you.
Yeah, and if we're putting on an Oak Strut Festival just so
Right,
our
Chief?
police officers can go in there and break up fights and disperse people, I don't think that's benefiting anything.
We don't have fights in Irmo. Come on. Nobody
20
ever.
or 30,000
How many fights we had at the Oak Strut last time?
How many fights have we had up here?
Well, that's different.
But anyway,
You did a good job of policing too.
we don't have to vote on anything. I just think we need to start thinking about it and getting our head wrapped around what we are going to do, because that money is accumulating.
I think if we keep it in the strut, it's a better way to use the money. That's my opinion.
I remember, and I ran on this. I remember the town having to write checks.
Oh, big checks.
Having to write big checks for this. So.
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, we have to continue to watch this. It's well under control. It started with Bob, and it's well under control now. It's
What's a big check? What's a big check to you?
$30,000.
We wrote one for 26.
No, we didn't. It came out of the accommodation.
Yeah,
we
we
wrote
didn't
the
have
check.
accommodations at that time.
We wrote a check for 5,000. I believe that came out of general fund for something. Yes, we did. We paid him $5,000 for a deposit for a band. Where was that come from? That came out of general fund.
No, it came out of their account. All the deposits for the band.
Oh, okay, Oka Trust Fund. Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, it could be argued, too.
I'm not arguing with
I
him.
know, but I'm just saying, if somebody wanted to be I'm going to call it a staunch conservative, they could sit there and say all day long, we ought to take every bit of the money that comes out of the orchestra and reimburse the town for all the money we put in it for years. They could argue that point, too. Might make a little bit of sense. The general fund is probably, over the 20-year period, probably short 100, 200,000, I don't know. I wouldn't say do that, but I do think we ought to kind of start looking.
All right.
Anyway, any more? You look like you want.
No. I think we've flogged this horse enough.
Next is the discussion on the yard of the month. This is something that I want to say about 2 meetings ago, maybe 1 meeting ago, I can't remember. But it was brought up by someone in the audience that we should be doing some stuff to promote stuff in town, such as the yard of the month. So this is where, excuse me, this is where this came from. And as far as, and the idea I had, just to kind of put that out on the table, was that each one of the council members would appoint, or not appoint, but would pick a home. And we'd have 5 signs that said Yard of the Month, Irmo Town Council. Each one of us would pick out a home. We'd go put the sign up with, somebody would go put the sign up, and it would stay for a month. And then we'd do that each month. At the end of each quarter, we would all decide out of those 15 homes, I guess it'd be, 5 for each month, 15 homes, which one would be chosen. And then that one would get, say, $100, $200 gift certificate or whatever at some garden place or Lowe's or whoever or whatever. And then at the end of the year, we would take the winners from the quarter and pick out one winner for the year and give them whatever, 200, 500, something, I don't know. And then start back over. But it would be a way for us, and anybody could pick any home, whether it's a beautiful home or an ugly home or their neighbor's home or just couldn't be their home. But whatever. And then those names would be put into a hat, so to speak, and we'd vote on which home. That was just my idea. And as far as the other idea, I mean, that's something to consider too. The only thing is, the citizens can do that now. They don't need our approval. They can just go do that. If somebody wants to do that all by themselves, they can go do it.
But I think we ought to let them.
Well, we can let, I mean, they can do it if we don't let them. They can do it.
Well, I think they have a good idea. If they have a group ready to help, I think that's a good thing to do.
It is.
Yeah. But they don't need our approval. They can do it. We can do it. They can do it too.
Well, we ought
whichever
to
one.
support them verbally, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Say, yeah, y'all do that.
But anyway, that's just where that idea came from. Any discussion?
Well, I'd even say that instead of a yard of the month, maybe the most improved yard of the month. Take a before and after picture.
I'm sorry. We get enough trouble up here passing ordinances. I mean, I can see there's a house on Parlock Road that comes to mind that has toilets in their yard. And I would nominate them for the Yard of the Month. And if they win, I'd probably get flogged by a lot of people. And I don't, we don't need to be doing that as a council. I think
that's
the
too much
citizens,
too much power.
that's a citizen, something in the citizens group. I don't know. I'm just saying, Hardy, something in the citizens group.
They brought it up at the last meeting. Somebody did, so I'm just throwing it out there.
maybe we can coax the Irmo Arbor Day Committee to come and do it for us, you know.
That would
I
be
don't know. I'm just saying, guys.
You know what? I mean, I agree with you, Barry. One of the things that this is wroth with is, gee, I worked my darndest to get my house, and I didn't win.
Exactly.
I didn't win. So, yeah, you're going to make one person happy, and you're going to upset all the others. Yeah, I hear you.
I'd rather another group out there to do that, and I'll say, hey, I'll be glad to look at it with you. I won't put my 2 cents in. Yeah. But as a council, I think we're asking for, I don't know, that's just Barry, but then that's a discussion, so that's my 2 cents.
Moving on.
And next is the discussion on road maintenance and.
Yeah.
Should come up on the screen. You don't have TV.
Oh, well, I got this thing. I think you gave me this.
Yeah. And this is directly talking about
second page.
Road maintenance as far as is concerned in the whole entire town of Irmo, not just in Friarsgate, but the entire town. It happened to come up on a discussion board on Facebook, and a lot of people were saying, well, gee, my road is terrible, whatever road it was, and why can't we get the roads paved? And our knee-jerk reaction from the council is, well, it's not our responsibility. It's the county's responsibility. And that's exactly true. So I went and asked Bob. I said, Bob, Irmo's split between 2 counties, Richland and Lexington. So I said, okay, Bob, in the Richland County side of the town, how many roads is actually slated to be resurfaced or repaved? And he went and got a list for me and said, okay, here are the roads that are slated to be served, and here's where we are on the list. Okay, what about on the Lexington County side? The same question. Well, here's where the roads are slated to be paved, and here's where we are on the list for those roads. And so, as a discussion item here for us tonight, what can we do to get more priority for our roads in the town on this list moved up? I think, we as a council, certainly the citizens can call Lexington on their own and say, hey, my road is terrible, I got potholes, I need to get the road paved. And they have a certain amount of power on their level to do that. But I think we as a council doing the same thing carries a little more weight when we do it. And I think we should use that bully power that we have to get some of priorities to our roads. As you see here, and Bob, help me out. This is the priority at Richland roads right now, where the Denbeck is?
These are the ones that have been done the last 2 years.
Okay, these are the ones that have been done. Okay.
And this is off, actually not the 17-18 list. This is the 16-17
It started back in 16, but that's when they didn't actually start the work until 17. But the list comes out, like 3-4 years in advance of what they're going to do, and then they go out and they bid them all out, and they get the contractors, and we don't even have a definite time frame when they're going to show up. But once it's on the list, it will get done.
So, citizens, here's the list of the roads that we have on Richland side that have been resurfaced, okay? And then on the Lexington side, these are the roads on the Lexington sides that have been resurfaced. And roads that need to be resurfaced, pretty much the entire town.
Well, there's more that need to be than just what's on their list, but it's what their engineers determine were the priority roads over in Irmo.
Okay, so now how do we get some priority done? I don't see, Royal Tower was one of the roads I think that were on there.
Well, that's a penny tax state road.
Royal Tower?
You say Royal, I thought you were talking about Broad River.
No, Royal Tower. Broad River is a penny tax.
Yeah, it's a state road. Broad River is a penny tax.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I've
They
never called
misplaced
Richland,
some of the funds.
but I've called Lexington several times about potholes or whatever that are in the.
Right.
I've gotten excellent response.
Yeah, they'll come out and fix them
I
right there.
identified them, and within a week to 10 days, pothole was, I'm not saying it was done expertly, but it was filled.
Well,
So I think we ought to use whatever little power we have We ought to use it for things like this, because they listen.
Yeah,
Lexington did.
they'll come out here, Kathy, and spend the $100 and fix pothole. But when you start talking about $100,000 to resurface the road, now we got an issue.
I didn't ask that. I just asked for the pothole.
Well, I mean, if as a council you want to go to their council meetings, then
Lexington can.
yeah, I think that will make a difference.
Richland meets the same night we do.
Yeah, they do. They read.
Of course.
But Lexington meets the same
Of
night,
course.
but early. I mean, we could go to Lexington and get here
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah, they meet at 6.
Yeah.
5:30.
They start at 4.
Do they?
They have a work session.
Yeah, well, we have no roads in Lexington on their list right now, and that's unacceptable. That's not acceptable.
Are you in
2019.
Lexington?
Yeah.
I am too, so.
You're Lexington? I thought you were Richland over there. Oh.
No,
I'm Lexington too.
no, that's a gerrymander. It really is.
But
Probably right.
I'm going to just say their answer is probably going to be, look what we did, I'm going to say last year, or whenever it was, last budget year. Because I don't think these were done this year. These were probably done last year.
No. Some of them were done just recently.
They started some of those projects in 2016, but I'm saying that was their 17, 18 list. But some of
I'm
them,
talking about Lexington side,
some of them started in 16, late 2016.
but some of them were done recently.
Right.
Shilling.
Correct.
Okay.
Go back to that.
Did you go back?
Okay. You're saying Charlwood was done.
Shillingford,
Yeah,
Shillingford North Woodrow, that was done this year. And
Same with Shillingford,
Inlet
same with
was
Woodrow
done
Street. They've all been done this year.
Okay.
and,
But on Lexington side, that's what I was
oh.
asking. On these on Lexington, when are these done? Do we know? Were they this
Very
year or
well.
last year? Or?
Finsbury got done this year, painted.
Yeah, Finsbury got done this year.
Okay.
The worst road in Irmo, my opinion.
Finsbury Court.
Yep. But keep in mind, Lexington, it's half Lexington, Finsbury is. That was done the previous year. The state came in and did Finsbury, and what's the side road there? In
Deptford.
Deptford. So that kind of finished the front part of that whole neighborhood up. Bosworth Field Court and all the little roads that are off of that all got done previously by Lexington County. So we've actually done pretty good because remember, Lexington County only does resurfacing 3 to 5 miles a year. It's a big county. So
Well, I want some
to
more
get what we
miles.
got, we actually, I think we did
But
really
now-
good recently.
If I would look at this chart, I would probably guess that there ain't a whole lot of roads left in Irmo in Lexington County
The what?
that are not done.
Oh, yeah.
Because we only got Quail Valley.
There's a
and we got
bunch.
Murraywood.
Where Mark lives,
Oh, New
Yeah, and
Yeah,
no.
New Friars
Chapel
Gate?
White,
Gate.
Mark's
New
whole
Friars
neighborhood
Gate,
needs to be resurfaced.
No, not all
Well,
of
I
it.
mean, just one little section back there, but most of it's Richland.
Yeah, but I mean, Arches Court could use some.
Yeah, Arches
research.
Court.
Yeah, I mean, the whole right off of the was it College Street, going back.
Yeah, but
and,
see, all that thing is Richland on one, and they did all those. Beacon Hill.
They didn't do well. They did. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, Beacon Hill.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, they did. They did that side. That's Richland did.
That's the
that.
Richland portion.
And do they favor the asphalt-based roads versus the concrete because the concrete-based roads would cost so much more to do?
Yes.
Is that how they prioritize?
It's a
it?
phenomenal cost to dig up the concrete and repack the surface, do the sub-base, put asphalt down. I mean, that's a big cost. I think when they came out and did Chadford Road about 12, 13 years ago, I don't know, but it cost them like $350,000 to do in Funachie Coyley.
Yeah, at one time, and I don't know how accurate that was, at one time it was $200,000 or $300,000 a mile to resurface.
yeah.
It was like $400,000 to $700,000 a mile to dig up a road and make it into a paved road. And y'all may remember years ago when we were doing the Cease Road program, and they put it on the list, and then they took it off the list, and we were trying to get back on the list. They had a list of dirt roads, and somebody at Richland County many years ago had used their political power to get it moved to the top of the list, and they were going to pave it, and they allocated money. And then somebody else got elected, and they got to looking at it, and they realized it didn't meet the criteria, and there were other roads that should have got paved, so they took it off the thing, and they moved it down to like 40. Anything above 25 could get moved up 10 spots. This one got moved from 40 to 1. But anyway, they took the money away.
Is that when we did the
See?
$1 million?
Cease Road, yeah.
Yeah.
But they took it back off the list and put it back down, and they have a schedule that says if it's houses on there, you get so many points. If it's an intersection, if it's a cut through, if it's got a church or a business. This road didn't have none of it. So it ended up 40th on their list. And they were anticipating that anything that was like below 20 would be 40 years down the road before they ever got to it. Wow. So it was kind of like, you can put it on the
We
list,
had
but
money
and the same thing on Eastview.
Give them.
They told us years ago, we can put it on the list, but it ain't never going to get paid.
Right.
Because they had 40 years of stuff
That
in
was
front of it, and they said, whatever. Like you said, they only got so many money to do so many miles. Richland has that penny tax, and you can see they're doing a little bit more with it. Lexington doesn't. And
But again, my whole gist is, I have the information now I can share with the citizens that yes, we have roads in our town that are getting attention on both Lexington and Richland County side. I just like to see a little more on our side be done. And I think we have the ability as elected officials here to have that happen, and we should use that.
And those roads that were done in Richland County, a lot of those, not all of them, but a lot of them look like they're over in Old Friars Gate and parts of New Friars Gate and whatever that subdivision is, Fox Run. If they didn't have that penny tax, I doubt these would be done. They have done a little bit better job of trying to, and those roads, some of those roads over, I remember St. Albans roads, and it was probably 10 years ago that they came out and marked it, where they do patches first before they pave it. They came out and marked all these roads, and that was all they did on it. And then so many years later, the pavement, the paint was washed away and drug and
patches disappeared.
and they still, they hadn't even passed it. They didn't even, they just
didn't
marked
pass
them. Got a lot of spirits up, and then nothing happened, and then the paint wore out. But they did pass that penny, so at least something's getting done with that.
That's it. Thank you.
I mean, we might be able to write a letter or do something and see, or go to the meetings.
I just have another question. I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but for clarity, Lexington County and Richland County won't talk to each other to see which roads they're doing. For instance, you have a section of North Royal Tower in Richland and a section of North Royal Tower in Lexington. Obviously, if the asphalt company, if the company is going to move all their equipment, it would be better and less expensive to do all of North Royal Tower at the same time, whether it be in Richland and Lexington. But they don't talk to each other, right?
They've done that before. They'll stop at the county line, just
Of
right in
course.
the middle of the street.
Of course.
They don't like each other.
Yeah.
Well, and they got different contracts, because
Yeah.
this one may have awarded it to ABC and the other one XYZ.
Well, again, if they were to talk to each other, they could both save money. They could.
Efficiency.
Exactly. But that's not government, right?
Not gonna happen.
Well,
And-
Mark, don't forget, I mean, they've got different engineering departments, and one department might think that Royal Tower is a priority 1 in theirs, and Lexington or the other county might think it's a priority 15 in theirs. They don't see it the same way.
Understood.
No other discussions, executive sessions, none. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjournment?
Live long and prosper.
Wait a minute, I think
Now, we can all, we didn't get nothing unanimous tonight, but maybe we can get this.